Every year, bike companies hype cutting-edge tech, ride modes, electronics, touchscreens. Yet the truth is brutal. Most new machines can't match the raw dominance of 90s legends. That's why we're counting down 15 motorcycles from the 90s that still destroy modern bikes. From Dakar warriors and bulletproof thumpers to hyperbikes that bent physics. These icons prove power and reliability never age. And best of all, many can still be found for a fraction of new bike prices. But if you've got one of these legends in your garage, never sell it. Earning the spotlight at number 15, Kawasaki KLR 650. Kawasaki KLR 650 wasn't built to win beauty contests. It was built to survive. Launched in the late 80s and carried almost unchanged through the entire 90s, this machine became the Swiss Army knife of motorcycles. Riders trusted it to go anywhere, do anything, and keep running long after more complicated bikes coughed their last. At its heart sat a 652 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine, simple, torquey, and as stubborn as a mule. With its broad, flat power band and plenty of low-end grunt, the KLR pulled confidently on highways, dirt trails, or rocky back roads. It wasn't flashy, but it delivered power where it mattered, in real-world riding. A built-in counterbalancer kept the thumper surprisingly smooth, while its air and liquid cooling design meant fewer worries about overheating. For long hauls, it offered stable geometry, a relaxed riding stance, and just enough comfort to chew through hundreds of miles without complaint. But the real magic of the KLR 650? Simplicity. Carburetors instead of computers. Basic wiring instead of fragile sensors. Long travel suspension that could soak up potholes, fire roads, or desert whoops. If something went wrong, you could fix it with hand tools in the middle of nowhere. A promise most modern bikes can't match. And then there's the value. Modern KLRs cost well over $6,000, but a clean 90s example can still be found for under $1,000. Combine that price with its legendary toughness, and the KLR remains one of the most practical adventure machines ever built. But while the Kawasaki sharpened the KLR's rough edges, it still leaned hard on old-school simplicity and minimalism. That stripped-down character gave it charm, but it also meant leaving some performance on the table. Now imagine a motorcycle that keeps the grit and durability, yet adds a layer of brute force and refinement the DR could never reach. And if you are a speed lover, you will need to hold on for its surge of power that makes modern bikes feel tame in comparison. Blazing in at number 14, Suzuki DR 650 SE. When Suzuki rolled out the DR 650 SE in 1996, they built a machine so tough and versatile that it still embarrasses many modern dual sport bikes. This wasn't a flashy motorcycle. It was a tool designed to get riders anywhere they wanted to go and to keep doing it year after year without drama. At its core sat a 644 cubic centimeter, air and oil-cooled single-cylinder engine, simple, strong, dependable. It put out just over 30 horsepower, but what mattered was the broad wave of torque right where riders used it most. That meant confident pulls from low speeds, easy cruising on highways, and enough punch to climb dirt trails or tackle mountain back roads. Top speed sat around 100 miles per hour, not blistering, but more than enough for real-world riding. And with a wet weight just over 350 pounds, the bike felt planted on the road yet nimble enough to handle tight trails. What truly made the DR 650 SE stand apart was its bulletproof simplicity. Carburetors instead of fragile sensors. Straightforward mechanics instead of complicated electronics. If something broke, you fixed it yourself with a few basic tools, even in the middle of nowhere. Suspension leaned basic, but it absorbed off-road punishment with ease. Electric start kept things practical, and the bike's reputation for firing up reliably made it a favorite in every climate. Even today, Suzuki still sells a near-identical D-Term 650, proof that the design got it right nearly 3 decades ago. Today, riders still chase after well-kept 90s examples, knowing they are buying a machine that values toughness over gimmicks. The DR 650 SE was the working man's adventure bike, straightforward, reliable, and ready for anything. But for those who craved a little more muscle and a wilder personality, Suzuki had another 90s classic waiting in the wings. Sitting proud at number 13, Suzuki Bandit 1200. When Suzuki released the Bandit 1200 in the mid-90s, they created a motorcycle that delivered raw power without overcomplication. It was not polished or delicate. It was muscular, straightforward, and built for riders who wanted big torque and everyday usability in one package. The engine was the star, an 1157 cubic centimeter air, an oil-cooled inline-4, descended from Suzuki's GSX-R 1100 Superbike. Instead of chasing peak horsepower, Suzuki reworked it for stronger low and mid-range thrust. The result was around 98 horsepower and nearly 62 pound-feet of torque, coming in early and pulling hard through the revs. It launched with urgency, delivered brutal roll-on acceleration, and yet remained forgiving enough for daily street duty. A steel cradle frame kept the bike tough and predictable, while stout suspension, dual front discs, and a monoshock rear gave it stability in corners and confidence at speed. It was heavy compared to featherweight sport machines, but it handled with surprising balance for a big-bore bruiser. What really gave the Bandit its lasting reputation was its personality. This was not a gadget-laden machine. No unnecessary electronics, no fragile systems to fail. Just honest mechanical muscle that riders could tune, modify, or ride stock with equal satisfaction. It was practical enough for commuting, relaxed enough for touring, and wild enough to carve up a canyon when the mood struck. Back then, the Bandit 1200 was priced around $7,500, while the half-fared S version cost about $8,000. Today, clean examples from that era can be found between $3,000 and $5,000, depending on condition and mileage. An incredible value compared to pricier modern bikes that cannot match its torque-rich punch or sheer presence. The Bandit 1200 proved you could have everyday usability wrapped around a sledgehammer of torque, raw, unapologetic, and almost untouchable in its price range. But Suzuki's muscle bike carried a certain roughness, a lack of refinement that showed its street fighter roots. Kawasaki looked at that same formula and thought, what if we could keep the brute force, but sharpen the handling, polish the style, and inject a dose of racing heritage? The answer became one of the most iconic muscle bikes of the late 90s. Claiming the spot at number 12, Kawasaki ZRX 1100. Kawasaki ZRX 1100 arrived in the late 90s as both a tribute and a challenge. It borrowed its aggressive styling from Eddie Lawson's 80s race machines, complete with the unmistakable Kawasaki green paint. But this was no museum piece. Underneath sat a 1,052 cubic centimeter inline-4, tuned for serious street muscle. With well over 100 horsepower and a torque curve that hit early and hard, the ZRX launched with a ferocity that even today's electronics-heavy machines struggle to replicate. This bike was not about rider aids or software, it was about raw connection. The firm suspension kept the chassis taut and planted through corners, while 6-piston front brakes reined in all that power with authority. Riders loved its balance of stability and agility, making it equally at home blasting down highways or carving up winding back roads. Back in the 90s, it was priced around $6,000, a bargain for the performance it delivered. Today, well-kept examples fetch between $4,000 and $8,000, still offering remarkable value against many modern motorcycles that cost far more, yet feel less alive. By now you can see why the 90s were such a wild time to be a rider. Machines that didn't just push limits, they shattered them. And we're only getting started. If you're enjoying this trip back into the decade when motorcycles rewrote the rulebook, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. That way you'll be right here with us for the rest of the countdown and every future ride we take into the machines that shaped our world on two wheels. The ZRX 1100 remains a standout because it never pretended to be anything other than what it is, a brute force machine with timeless style and unfiltered performance. But that same focus revealed its limits. All the muscle in the world didn't change the fact that it lived and breathed asphalt. For riders whose journeys stretched beyond city grids and mountain switchbacks, who dreamed of deserts, jungles, and endless horizons, a different kind of machine was needed. One that blended toughness with range, agility with endurance, and a pedigree proven in the world's harshest rallies. And that's exactly the kind of spirit that defines the next contender. At number 11, Honda Africa Twin XRV 750. The Honda Africa Twin XRV 750 is more than a 90s adventure bike. It is proof that smart engineering and real-world practicality can outlast fads and still challenge modern machines. Built between 1990 and 2000, this bike quickly earned a reputation for toughness and versatility, and it continues to deliver in ways many of today's adventure bikes cannot. At its heart sits a liquid-cooled 742 cubic centimeter V-twin producing just over 60 horsepower. That may not sound overwhelming, but the delivery is smooth, torquey, and predictable, which is exactly what matters on long rides or off-road detours. With its 5-speed gearbox and chain drive, the Africa Twin could cruise highways at over 100 miles per hour, yet remain controlled and confidence-inspiring on gravel or dirt. The chassis was equally impressive. Telescopic front forks, a Pro-Link rear setup, and a balanced frame gave it poise on twisty pavement while shrugging off abuse on trails. At around 400 pounds dry, it undercut today's adventure heavyweights by a wide margin, making it far easier to handle in tight spots. Add in a large tank capable of stretching close to 200 miles per fill-up, and you had a true go-anywhere machine. When new, the Africa Twin cost just over $6,000. Today, clean examples fetch between $3,000 and $8,000, depending on condition. A bargain for a bike with legendary reliability and global respect. The Africa Twin XRV 750 remains a living legend. Lighter, simpler, and in many ways tougher than its modern descendants. It is not nostalgia, it is proof that Honda built a machine in the 90s that still destroys modern bikes in the real world. But its very restraint, modest power, lighter weight, minimalist equipment was also what held it back from climbing higher. Some riders wanted more than just durability. They wanted long-haul comfort, highway speed, and a motorcycle that felt like it could carry them around the world without compromise. And in the mid-90s, one company answered by redefining what an adventure motorcycle could be, with even longer horizons, heavier loads, and comfort across continents. Cruising in at number 10, BMW R1100GS. The BMW R1100GS redefined adventure motorcycles in the 90s and still dominates many modern bikes in real-world performance. Introduced in 1990, it was BMW's first GS with a 1,085 cubic centimeter air and oil-cooled flat twin boxer engine, pairing solid power with legendary reliability. Producing around 80 horsepower and 72 pound-feet of torque through a shaft drive and 5-speed transmission, the R1100GS delivers smooth, usable power across all conditions. Low and mid-range torque make mountain trails, twisty highways, and long-distance touring effortless. Its boxer engine emits a signature rumble and engaging throttle feel that modern electronics-heavy machines rarely replicate. BMW's innovative suspension, telelever front and paralever rear, enhances stability, reduces dive under braking, and provides confidence-inspiring handling. The chassis balances agility with comfort, allowing riders to tackle corners or cover miles with ease. Though production ended in 1999, used R1100GS models remain accessible, typically priced between $2,000 and $5,000 depending on condition. For a bike offering cutting-edge 90s technology, enduring durability, and off-road prowess, this is an exceptional value. The BMW R1100GS is more than a classic. It is a mechanical icon. Its blend of innovation, reliability, and touring capability ensures it continues to outperform many modern bikes, earning its place among the top 90s motorcycles that still destroy today's competition. It destroyed modern bikes with its toughness, its versatility, and its groundbreaking suspension, a machine that could conquer trails one day and swallow highways the next. But the next contender destroyed modern bikes in an entirely different way, with long-haul comfort, with turbine-smooth power delivery, and with mile-after-mile stability that made cross-country travel effortless. This coming bike wasn't about exploring unpaved frontiers, it was about turning the open road itself into its kingdom. Revving at number 9, Honda ST1100 Pan-European. Launched in 1990 and running through 2002, the ST1100 carved out its own lane in the sport touring world. Positioned between razor-sharp sport bikes and the heavyweight Goldwing, it delivered the kind of balance that riders still struggle to find today. At its heart beats a liquid-cooled 90-degree V4, producing about 100 horsepower at 8,500 RPM and roughly 79 pound-feet of torque at 6,000. A 5-speed gearbox and shaft drive made the ST both smooth and low maintenance, while its aluminum frame and full fairing kept it stable even when loaded with panniers and a passenger. Tipping the scales around 725 pounds, it still pulled to a top speed north of 130 miles per hour, proving it had serious muscle beneath the bodywork. Later models even offered ABS, giving this 90s tourer stopping power ahead of its time. Back then, it sold for nearly $14,000. Today, well-kept examples often run between $2,000 and $4,000, depending on condition and care. That's a bargain for a machine that can still crush interstates all day and then dance through back roads with grace. But while the ST1100 delivered unmatched stability and long-haul comfort, its size and calm nature meant it never felt truly hungry. Riders who wanted sharper edges and a bike that pushed back at the road were left searching. Honda already had the answer waiting in the wings, a machine that didn't just balance sport and touring, but attacked every mile with precision that made even modern bikes nervous. Locking down number 8, Honda VFR750. If the Stain 1100 showed how Honda could master long-distance comfort, the VFR750 proved they could blend sport and touring into a single legend. Built from 1990 to 1997, the RC36 became a benchmark for what a sport tourer should be, and many argue it still destroys so-called modern upgrades. Power comes from a 748 cubic centimeter, liquid-cooled 90-degree V4, making around 105 horsepower at 10,000 RPM and roughly 53 pound-feet of torque at 8,000. A 6-speed gearbox and chain drive keep it engaging, while the twin-spar aluminum frame and single-sided swing arm gave it razor handling and unmistakable style. Weighing in near 460 pounds dry, the VFR stayed nimble without losing stability, and its top speed around 145 miles per hour was fearsome for its day. What set the VFR apart wasn't just performance, it was Honda's gear-driven camshafts, delivering unmatched reliability and a silky linear power band. Even today, riders praise its blend of mechanical excellence, sporty DNA, and long-haul practicality. But as much as the VFR thrilled riders with precision and balance, some in the late 90s wanted even more brute force. A leader-class beast that could thunder down straights and still carve corners with authority. That's where Yamaha rolled in with a machine carrying both muscle and menace. Coming at number 7, Yamaha YZF-1000R Thunder Race. The Yamaha Thunder Race brought a different message in 1996. Raw leader-class muscle with a surprising dose of comfort. Produced until 2002, this machine showed that a superbike could deliver real-world speed and long-haul versatility in one package. Power came from a 1,002 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled inline-4 with 20 valves producing about 145 horsepower and close to 90 pound-feet of torque. That broad torque curve made the Thunder Race a monster in the mid-range, pulling hard without needing sky-high revs. Riders loved how easy it was to overtake at highway speeds, and its top end still pushed well past 160 miles per hour. But what truly separated the Thunder Race from other superbikes of its day was how livable it felt. The riding position was spacious, the seat was broad, and the large aerodynamic fairing kept wind fatigue at bay. The chassis borrowed lessons from Yamaha's championship-winning YZF-750 and FZR-X Sup, delivering rock-solid stability in the corners, with suspension tuned firm enough for sharp handling, but still forgiving on rougher roads. It was a superbike you could ride hard all day without feeling beaten up. Back then, the Thunder Race carried a premium price. Today, clean examples typically range between $2,000 and $4,000, making it one of the most affordable ways to experience genuine leader-class superbike performance. The Thunder Race proved a superbike could balance comfort and muscle, but that comfort carried a cost. It dulled some of the razor's edge that pure sport riders craved. For those who wanted a machine that felt quicker on its feet, one that snapped harder into corners, and answered the throttle with less restraint, Yamaha's big leader bike left a gap. That is exactly where Kawasaki stepped in, delivering the ZX-9R, a machine that took the same 90s horsepower wars and wrapped them in a lighter frame, sharper handling, and the ferocity riders had been begging for. At number 6, Kawasaki Ninja ZX-9R. The Yamaha Thunder Race proved that superbikes could blend comfort with blistering speed, but in 1994, Kawasaki came out swinging with the Ninja ZX-9R. This was Kawasaki's direct answer to Honda's groundbreaking CBR1100RR, yet instead of chasing a razor-thin race bike, Kawasaki built something broader in scope, a machine that combined raw performance with real-world usability. At its heart sat an 899 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled inline-4 with a 16-valve DOHC layout. Early models made about 125 horsepower, with later versions climbing closer to 140. Torque came in strong at around 71 pound-feet, and that wide, flexible delivery made the Ninja easy to ride hard without constantly flirting with redline. With a top speed brushing 172 miles per hour, the ZX-9R could trade punches with anything of its day, and it still feels quick even against today's machines. The chassis used an aluminum twin-spar frame paired with inverted front forks and Kawasaki's Unitrack rear shock. The result was handling that struck a fine balance between stability and agility. Unlike many track-focused sport bikes, the riding position was roomy, the seat comfortable, and the bike was well-suited for longer rides, even with a passenger. It was that mix of comfort and speed that made the ZX-9R stand apart. Back in the 90s, this was a premium motorcycle, selling new for the equivalent of $8,000 to $9,000. Today, clean survivors typically bring between $2,000 and $7,000, depending on year and condition. The ZX-9R proved you could have a superbike that was blisteringly fast, yet comfortable enough to live with every day. But that comfort came with weight. The Kawasaki was heavier than its rivals, and when the roads grew tight, it didn't flick side to side with the same urgency. Riders who craved that knife-edge sharpness, who wanted a machine that felt more like an extension of their own body, kept looking. That is exactly where Honda stepped in, unleashing the Fireblade, a bike that tore up the rulebook and showed the world just how agile a leader-class machine could be. At number 5, Honda CBR1100XX Fireblade. When Honda dropped the original Fireblade in the early 90s, it didn't just enter the litter bike fight, it reset the standard. While rivals chased ever bigger horsepower, Honda went the opposite direction. Keep the engine strong but strip away the weight. The result was a machine that felt more like a middleweight on its feet, yet carried the punch of a full superbike. The Fireblade's 893 cubic centimeter inline-4 produced roughly 122 horsepower. But the real story was its astonishingly light frame, just under 400 pounds dry. That figure left riders grinning because it translated to razor-sharp cornering, instant transitions, and a bike that felt alive on both back roads and the track. Later versions crept closer to 130 horsepower, but the key ingredient never changed: featherweight agility with superbike muscle. Unlike most hard-edged sport bikes of its day, the Fireblade didn't punish riders with cramped ergonomics. It struck balance, aggressive enough to dominate fast sweepers, yet forgiving enough for longer weekend rides. Today, well-kept 90s Fireblades typically bring $2,000 to $5,000, a small price for a true revolution on two wheels. The Fireblade was a revolution, feather-light and explosive, yet its focus on agility meant some aspects: stability at extreme speeds and absolute confidence under hard power were left slightly in the balance. Riders dreaming of a bike that combined extreme responsiveness with rock-solid composure found the answer waiting. And that is exactly what the next bike did, offering a machine that made 90s engineering feel impossibly modern. Taking the 4th position, Yamaha YZF-R1. The first time you open the throttle on Yamaha's YZF-R1, the sensation is not about numbers, it is about disbelief. That howl from the inline-4 feels alive, pulling harder and faster than riders of the late 1990s had ever imagined. What makes the R1 legendary is not just its 998 cubic centimeter engine or its 135 horses. It is the way Yamaha wrapped that strength in a frame weighing a touch over 400 pounds. The result is a motorcycle that reacts quicker than thought itself. Lean into a corner and it carves like a blade. Snap it upright and it fires down the straight as if gravity has lost its grip. Unlike modern sport bikes covered in electronic safety nets, the original R1 was bare-knuckled. No traction control, no rider aids, just throttle, tire, and courage. That raw connection is why it still commands respect today. Some machines are remembered for what they cost, but the R1 is remembered for what it gave: pure speed and unfiltered sensation. Even decades later, it remains the benchmark for what a true sport bike should feel like. In the late 90s, Yamaha's R1 sold near $12,000, with today's survivors ranging from $5,000 to $12,000. It was light, sharp, and futuristic, but that was both its brilliance and its limitation. It arrived too late in the decade to truly define 90s, and its impact was felt more as a glimpse of tomorrow than a ruler of the ERA. Riders who lived through those years know the crown wasn't won by arriving last with cutting-edge reflexes. It was seized early and defended for nearly the entire decade. And that crown belonged to a machine that didn't rely on compact precision or featherweight tricks. Instead, it was raw, heavyweight power, a motorcycle so dominant, so untouchable, that for almost the entire 90s, it held a single title no other could challenge: the fastest production bike in the world. Securing number 3, Kawasaki Ninja ZX11. Before the Hayabusa and before the Blackbird, the Kawasaki Ninja ZX11, known worldwide as the ZZR1100, was the machine everyone feared at the stoplight and revered on the open road. Introduced in 1990, it instantly claimed the title of fastest production motorcycle on the planet, a crown it held firmly for 6 straight years. Even now, it is a 90s weapon that can make modern riders shake their heads in disbelief. The magic came from a 1,052 cubic centimeter liquid, cooled inline 4, producing roughly 144 horsepower and close to 75 pound-feet of torque. That strength hurled the ZX11 to a verified top speed of about 176 miles per hour, with quarter-mile times dipping into the low 10-second range at over 130 miles per hour. Numbers like that meant you were astride a rocket ship that somehow carried license plates. But the ZX11 was not just a straight-line sprinter. Kawasaki invested heavily in aerodynamics, creating a slippery fairing that kept the bike planted at speed and surprisingly comfortable on long stretches. Riders often describe the surge of acceleration as smooth, endless, and almost jet-like. There were no electronics to bail you out, just precise engineering and rider judgment, which made mastering it all the more rewarding. Back in 1990, its sticker price was around $7,600. Today, you can still find examples ranging from about $3,500 for well-used machines to over $10,000 for low-mileage originals. The ZX11 ruled with brute speed, but its raw power became both crown and curse. Riders wanted more polish, stability, precision, refinement. Rivals smelled opportunity. One manufacturer engineered a machine to topple Kawasaki's throne, delivering everything the ZX11 wasn't: smoother, sharper, steadier, faster. When it arrived, it didn't merely challenge the king, it dethroned him. Lighting it up at number 2, Honda CBR1100XX Super Blackbird. Honda's answer to Kawasaki's record-setting ZX11 was not just to go faster, but to go smarter. When the CBR1100XX Super Blackbird debuted in 1996, it stunned the motorcycle world by breaking through the 186 mile-per-hour ceiling. More than sheer velocity, though, this machine delivered a riding experience that felt polished and calculated in a way few rivals could match. Its 1,137 cubic centimeter inline 4 produced roughly 164 horsepower, but the way that power arrived was the real magic. The Blackbird delivered thrust that felt turbine-like, steady, seamless, and relentless. Honda's use of dual counterbalancers stripped away harsh vibration, leaving the rider with a ride so composed it almost disguised the ferocity beneath. Pair that with wind tunnel-shaped bodywork and a chassis that felt lighter than expected, and the Super Blackbird became both a supersonic bullet and an all-day mile eater. By 1999, fuel injection and a ram air system refined the engine even further, ironing out mid-range dips and sharpening throttle response. The linked braking system, wide rear tire, and supple suspension gave the bike a planted, trustworthy feel, even when stretching deep into its performance envelope. Few machines have balanced long-distance comfort with hyperbike pace so effectively. Back in the late 90s, the Blackbird listed at roughly $14,000. Today, used examples can be found between $2,000 and $5,500, making it one of the most attainable icons of that era. The Super Blackbird was Honda at its finest, blisteringly fast, effortlessly refined, and balanced beyond dispute. It could shatter records and still carry you across states with grace, yet perfection carried restraint. For all its brilliance, the Blackbird remained a gentleman's missile. Smooth, composed, measured. But the 90s weren't just about refinement. They were about audacity. Riders craved not just more speed, but total domination. A machine untouchable, erasing rivals rather than merely beating them. Where the Blackbird held back, this newcomer unleashed everything. Its arrival didn't just dethrone the king, it destroyed the crown itself. Motorcycling had never seen such overwhelming supremacy, and arguably hasn't since. The legend at the very top, number 1, Suzuki GSX-1300R Hayabusa. When Suzuki unveiled the GSX-1300R Hayabusa in 1999, it was a declaration of war against everything that came before. Designed under the mantra of the ultimate sport bike, this machine combined unprecedented power, precision engineering, and wind-cheating aerodynamics into a package that redefined what a production motorcycle could achieve. Decades later, it remains a force that can still outpace many modern machines. At its core, the Hayabusa houses a 1,300 cubic centimeter inline 4-engine generating roughly 172 horsepower and a broad tractable torque curve. This engine launches the bike past 190 miles per hour, with quarter-mile times dipping under 10 seconds. Performance that shocked the motorcycle world in its day and continues to impress. Its aluminum twin-beam frame, inspired by samurai armor, slices through air effortlessly, keeping the chassis stable and the rider planted, even when pushing limits most modern bikes shy away from. What makes the Hayabusa remarkable is its ability to combine blistering speed with real-world rideability. The seat, ergonomics, and chassis balance allow long rides without fatigue, while the large 190-section rear tire delivers cornering confidence and grip that belies its raw power. It is a machine that feels equally at home screaming down a freeway or threading through twisty back roads. When new, the Hayabusa retailed for roughly $15,000. Today, examples in good condition typically range from $4,000 to $8,500, offering riders a chance to own a legendary piece of 90s engineering at a fraction of its original cost. The GSX-1300R Hayabusa is more than just a superbike. It is the ultimate expression of the 90s pursuit of speed, stability, and audacious engineering. For anyone seeking proof that the decade produced machines capable of still destroying modern bikes, the Hayabusa stands alone. It closed the decade by ending the speed wars, and even today it stands as proof of what the 90s gave us. Motorcycles that still leave modern machines shaking. If you want more stories like this, the next ride is waiting for you right here on the screen. Click and watch, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll always be with us when the next legend roars to life.